Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Sophia Pineda, and I completed my mentorship study with NITCO. They are a digital automation or software company in Katy, Texas, and I completed it under the software engineer by the name of Michael Hunt through the Gifted and Talented Mentorship Program. And I attend Kempner High School in Sugar Land, Texas, and my presentation is titled the following: building a web application from to-do app, building a web application from start to finish. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Okay, so before I actually go into my project, I want to go way back in time and go before computers even existed and talk about kind of how data was stored. So businesses had paperwork, and that paperwork was put into filing cabinets, and those filing cabinets were put into warehouses. So anything from just like any form of information was put onto that paperwork, and it was put into those filing cabinets, and those filing cabinets were all stored away. And obviously this was kind of a really inefficient process, but it was probably the only thing that could have worked at the time. But thankfully technology advanced, and all this information could be formatted or organized through a computer, and companies became interested in investing in computers to do that job. So before I kind of connect this to my actual project, I need to go over two things, which is RAM and hard drive. You've probably heard of both of these things, but might not know what they are. So RAM is short-term memory information. So if you're writing an email and you hit refresh on your web page and all of the information is gone, that information, it's not like truly gone. I mean, you can't see it, but it's stored in RAM, so it's short-term memory, and the data doesn't persist. It's not going to stay there, right? This is the information that was stored in the filing cabinets. And we have hard drives. So if you hit refresh on that same email and everything you wrote saved, that information is stored in your hard drive because the data persisted. So that's the information that got stored in the warehouses. So if hard drives are the information stored in the warehouses and your data is the hard drive, then if data goes into databases, then your databases represent warehouses. So this is a really big idea that my mentor wanted me to touch on, kind of connecting how we went from paperwork to filing cabinets to warehouses to how we've gone from data to databases. And my project kind of encapsulates this idea in different ways. So as you can see, technology has advanced, and there have been a lot of advancements through data and going from paperwork to warehouses to databases, but many more advancements have taken place that have allowed for even more advanced procedural workloads that output the greatest opportunity with the least required energy. And I'm going to touch on a few, which are Gatsby, React, and Bootstrap. And yes, there are tons of other advancements, but these are ones that relate to my actual project. And you probably haven't heard of these. I would be really surprised if you had. But first off, Gatsby, by definition, is a static HTML page generator. And this probably doesn't make much sense, but basically Gatsby is a developer tool that allows developers to build fast, secure, and complex websites that encapsulate many layers of data into a very seamless and simple design. So it's essentially just a developer tool that allows developers to build these really complex projects in a very simple way. And we also have React. So React by definition is a one-way binded HTML templating engine. So if you've ever watched a movie or seen just an image of someone typing hundreds of lines of code, that's probably taking place in what's known as an IDE, or integrated development environment. And what React does is it can be implemented into your IDE to template or restructure your code in a much more pleasing way. So if you have Grammarly attached to your computer and you're typing a document and it makes suggestions for you, React is kind of similar but with software. So we also have Bootstrap. So many developers may not be the most creatively inclined. So what Bootstrap does is it can be implemented into your programming to make your interface look lot better, or just give it a beautiful design. The interface is what you're looking at. So what you're looking at right now is your user interface, and Bootstrap can be attached to a project to give it a much more pleasing user interface experience. And since I've gone over some advancements that have already taken place, I want to touch on some that haven't actually been put like into the world as more present as the ones that I've discussed are, but are still like underway. So in the software industry, technology is always being advanced, and the people who are making these advancements are known as hackers. Hackers are not the people who are stealing your data or logging into your email and taking your information. Hackers are the people who, they take ideas from former creations and they use that to make even better technology. So there's kind of this saying like in software that software engineers just get paid a bunch of money to go online and copy information, like, or copy code. And while this like can be true to an extent, that's basically what hackers are doing, is they're taking code that already exists, or taking ideas that already exist, and they're using their own knowledge to make them better. So one way that has been applied is through something known as progressive web apps, and I wanted to discuss this because it kind of connects with my own project. So progressive web apps combine the features of both web and mobile applications. So a web application, right, you've all been on one, maybe like google.com, right? You can reach it on any device, but you will need like a data or a network connection in order to access it. If you hit refresh, you're probably just gonna get that like screen that the information won't load, and you probably know what I'm talking about. But with mobile apps, you know, you can open them and they'll likely work. So like just like a game or something, anything of the sort, it might not load like your information, but it's going to open, it's going to run. It's going to work regardless of a network connection. So progressive web apps kind of combine the ideas of both. So now actually going into my project or my application is a to-do application. So if you've ever made a to-do list, right, you write it down, you can change it, you can cross it off and all that. So that's kind of what my mentor wanted me to replicate, but just in the form of web application. And many other of my classmates may have done a more like research-based approach with maybe like a hypothesis and actual like data that they could present to you. But my mentor wanted me to just build something from the ground up, just to allow me to hone in on those really essential building blocks of coding and that are always present in software. So two of those building blocks, right, are the paperwork to file cabinet to warehouse idea that I already presented, and this acronym known as CRUD, which stands for create, read, update, and delete. And so a lot of web applications will go off of this idea where data is created, it's read by the computer, and then it's updated onto your screen, and that data can be deleted. So my application was really designed and was created to kind of like mock those two ideas. And how was it created? Well, remember those successes in the field that I've talked about, React, Gatsby, and Bootstrap, that's the reason I talked about them, because they were used in my actual project. And actually going into my project, the first order of business was hitting that first C in CRUD, or create. So we needed to create a to-do. And as you can see right here, this was kind of the first component of my project, where we wanted to create an input with a button. You see this add button here to save my to-do, or to save my input. So if I were to click in this box right here, I could type and hit add, and it would take the value that I put into my input, and it would be stored in an array. And what an array is it's like a list of values. It can be values of like words or numbers, it doesn't matter, but in this case, obviously it was words. And we needed to create an array to add our to-dos to. And so right here you have our function. So essentially what will happen is once an array is added once an input is added into the array, the computer will update what's known as the render. And what the render is it's the part of the code that will tell the computer, hey, like input this on the screen. So once an array is added, the computer knows to update that render, and that new to-do will display on the screen. And I've already kind of touched on how this relates to the file cabinet or the CRUD idea, because we are taking that data and now we're storing it in our database, because if I were to hit refresh on my project, the data would have persisted if you were able to like actually interact with it, but just take my word for it, it does persist, and therefore it represents that paperwork to file cabinet idea. And also next we needed to update a to-do or edit a to-do. So as you can see here, after we've created a to-do, it'll be placed under the add to-do button, and we needed to create another input with a button to edit our to-do. So once you hit that edit button, this input box will show up and you can change it. And what's happening with this function is the code is being run and it's saying, hey, if any value from our previous array has been changed, then we need to update the render to show that new value. So if I hit edit on make hot dogs and I change it to make chicken tenders and I hit save, the computer will run through that new array and it'll compare every value of the old array to the new one, and it'll say, no, a new value has been created, it's not identical, we need to display this new array. And this tackles the update part of our CRUD acronym. And finally, deleting a to-do. So what will happen is when you hit that delete button is it'll run through the list of inputs or the array, and at that spot where the value that you want to delete matches with the value of the array, it'll tell this function, which is known as a splice function, as you can see here, will say, hey, at this spot in the array, get rid of it, and then the new array will be displayed via the render, and this finally completes the D in our CRUD acronym, and the data will persist. So when I hit refresh on that on the web page, the to-do will no longer exist, kind of showing how that data will persist and how it represents our file cabinet idea. So in the future, I'm sure we can all agree that technology will continue to be advanced and advancements will continue to take place and hackers will continue to hack, but more specifically relating to my project, I think that greater developer tools will be built to allow for an even more seamless design. So we have our developer tools like Gatsby, React, and Bootstrap, but I think that in the future there will be other tools that will allow for even less experienced developers than me to create even better designs than I have, which goes off the idea that we want opportunity to be heightened with energy being lowered. So I think that's what will occur in the future. There will be tools and like platforms that developers can use to create their own technology, but in a more efficient way that makes it even easier, and so that eventually all people can not only use technology, but can create technology. And where do I fit into all of this? So through my mentorship, I have really been taught the foundations of creating something, obviously in the world of software, and using those building blocks and learning those building blocks has really taught me that technology has the power to create a lot, even from just a simple to-do app to something huge. And knowing and understanding these building blocks will allow me in the future to hopefully advance my own technology, because in the future I hope to either obtain a degree in computer science or some form of engineering, and learning these building blocks has really allowed me to get my foot in the door of like showing me what the industry looks like and where it can take me. But ultimately, I'm encouraged to keep learning and creating to create a more accessible, equitable, and sustainable world, obviously through technology, because technology is our future and I hope to be a part of it. So that completes my presentation, and if anyone has any questions, you're free to ask, but yeah, that's the end of my presentation. I'm just going to stop my recording, then I'll restart in a minute.